On today's episode of the MSO podcast, I'm chatting with Amy Puzey, a holistic nutritionist and founder of Goodphyte. Amy's work focuses on improving nutrient absorption using a special enzyme called phytase, which could make a real difference for people living with MS. I met Amy about a year ago and have been taking her phytase-based product Goodphyte ever since, and for me, I've seen incredible results. I want to be clear, I'm not endorsing this product, and I have absolutely no financial ties to Amy or her company. As you listen, you might find this a bit complicated, but stick with us. Amy's approach to nutrition is powerful, whether you're living with MS, looking to boost your energy, or just improve your overall wellness. This episode is for you. I'm Matthew Embry. Let's go. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Amy, I'm going to jump right into it. You've created a product that you think the majority of human beings on the planet should have. What is it and why?
So, yes, I do think that most people should take it. It's an enzyme called phytase, and it breaks down an anti-nutrient that's on all plant foods. And that anti-nutrient binds to zinc, iron, calcium, and magnesium, and it prevents your body from absorbing those nutrients.
So I don't want to interrupt you, but let's back this right up. So the product that you've created is called phytase. Okay, so what exactly is phytase? Is it a digestive enzyme?
It is to some extent, but that's like a very basic way. It's so much more than that. So it's called a phosphatase enzyme. So what it does, it goes in and it dephosphorylates that anti-nutrient. So the anti-nutrient is made of an inositol molecule in the middle and then 6 phosphate groups. Chemically, that's the structure.
Okay, so I hope you don't think I'm too stupid here, but I've got to slow this down. So an anti-nutrient. So what is exactly an anti-nutrient, and how do I get anti-nutrients into my body?
So an anti-nutrient is the way that the seed protects itself from being eaten before it has a chance to sprout. So when you think of a seed going into the ground, it needs certain conditions to sprout, right? To crack the outer coating of that seed. It needs moisture, it needs darkness, and it needs warmth. So until you have that, that's not going to activate the enzyme that breaks the shell and lets the germ out. So the seed, just like an animal that's running away from its prey, it's protecting itself from humans from being eaten. So humans aren't necessarily meant to be eating those seeds. And our traditional way of eating any grains, any nuts, any seeds, we would have fermented them. So you think like miso, tempeh, sourdough bread, there's sour porridge in Africa. That's how they prepare those foods. They would ferment for 3 days at a time. And there was just this inherent wisdom that that's how you prepare those foods. We don't do that anymore. We eat food, as quickly as possible. Nobody's making traditional food that way.
Okay, so I'm going to try to back this up. And so what you're saying is that in seeds, nuts, and grains, and beans, there's something called phytate, correct?
Yeah. So to keep it easier, phytic acid.
Phytic acid.
Yeah.
Is it phytic acid or phytic acid?
I think it's phytic acid.
Okay.
So phytic acid is phytate. So it's an anti-nutrient. And the way that it works is that it binds to those really critical micronutrients in your body. It's the way that the plant is killing us from the inside, basically. And I'm not saying plants aren't good to eat, but they have ways of defending themselves too. You think about mushrooms are toxic, or there are plants out there that are poisonous. It's the way that they protect themselves. So the seed, the anti-nutrient, binds to those really important micronutrients in your body, and it prevents your body from absorbing them.
Okay, so if I'm eating seeds, grains, beans, or nuts, I'm eating phytate. And that phytate is acting as an anti-nutrient, so I'm not getting the micronutrients that I need to be functioning optimally.
Right. So even if you're getting enough calories, you could be starving. That's called hidden hunger or micronutrient deficiency. So you're starving from the inside. You're not able to access the zinc, period. And it affects your internal pools of zinc as well. They're called your endogenous pools of zinc. So it's not just what you eat or what you take as a supplement. It affects your whole zinc recycling system. It binds to it and it pulls it out of your system. So your whole immune system is screwed.
Okay, so it doesn't matter who I am or where I am on the planet. If I'm eating a large amount of these foods, I'm going to have problems because my body's not absorbing enough.
Correct.
Okay, so
Because humans don't make phytase.
got it.
Monogastrics, one stomach, they don't make phytase. Ruminants do. Cows, they have 5 stomachs.
Okay,
They can handle it.
so if I'm on the MS Hope protocol, I'm on the best bet diet, I'm exercising, practicing mindfulness, making sure I have optimal doses of vitamin D, why do I need phytase?
So the best bet diet, does it have grain in it? I don't know the...
Very little.
Very little. Okay. But it does have a lot of plant foods.
Yeah.
So they'll still have phytic acid in them. Beans, nuts, seeds, any of those, they're all still high phytic acid.
Okay, so phytic acid is the bad guy.
The bad guy.
And there's no other way to get rid of it unless you use
So-
phytase?
So you can ferment, you can soak, you can sprout, you can heat, and that will deplete some of the phytic acid, but not all of it. So you really need to be doing super doses of phytase to completely break down all that phytic acid.
So more or less, to break this down really simple, phytic acid is like a poison.
Yeah.
And we don't know exactly what disease is going to manifest in someone because of this. And then once I take the phytase, it wipes out the phytic acid.
Yeah.
I'm now absorbing all these micronutrients. I'm getting optimal, say, zinc in my body. Does that make sense? And I should, in theory, start getting healthier no matter what I have.
Right. And I can't say that, I mean, it's not a cure for everything, but it's had, like, there's quite a bit of research out there on how if you break down all that phytic acid, you're then absorbing more protein, you're absorbing the micronutrients, you have access to the phosphorus that is needed for DNA repair and for ATP. That's your energy. ATP is your energy.
Now, I have to admit, when I first heard this, I thought it was too good, too simple to be true, until I tried it and then had such unbelievable results that I really do believe you're onto something. So, Amy, what's your background so we have a good sense of like why we should trust this information coming from you?
So I started in nursing at the University of Alberta. I did 3 years of nursing, and then I switched into nutrition. So I worked as a nutritionist for 9 years. So that's my training, is more in nutrition.
So you've been in this space, nutrition, health, for a long time.
Yeah.
And you have the ability to research.
Yeah, I'm kind of a nerd. I really love to read research papers. And now with ChatGPT, you can digest it all so quickly. But I mean, when this all started, I was just reading research paper after. I'd stay up all night and read research papers.
For me, when, we first met and you first contacted, I was highly skeptical. We get approached by a lot of people who come to us with ideas and, cure-alls and all these types of things. But when when I first interviewed you and then my dad looked at the research, we felt like there was something, we knew there was something there. The positive effect it had on me was completely unpredictable. I was shocked of the difference once I started taking the product. Now, were you shocked by that?
Absolutely. So when I brought it to market, this is research I started in 2008. So it was when I was working as a nutritionist, and I started reading about it, and I was like, how did I not learn anything about phytase or phytic acid in all of my training, all of my education? Nothing. And when I started looking at it, and I started looking at it through the lens of HIV/AIDS, because I just had always felt kind of called to work in that area, or something in poverty alleviation, hunger alleviation. So that was kind of the lens that I was looking at it through initially. And I was working with an immunologist in the clinic that I worked in, and I asked her about it. I said, okay, so we know that zinc is critical to the immune system. And if this anti-nutrient is binding to that, then is that then potentially affecting all these diseases? And she said, yeah, but I mean, she's busy, I'm busy, whatever. So I started the research, then eventually went to the Canadian Trials Network in Vancouver, developed a protocol around HIV with them. But then I kind of got tired. I didn't have I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't have the energy. And so then in 2019, I was still running 5 Peaks, and I thought, this is too big to not tell the world about it, because I've tried to give it away so many times to people and no one's taking it. So I have to do this. Like, too bad. You're going to have to do this. So, but I didn't think, I had no idea it was going to do anything in autoimmune disease. That was not an expectation. All I knew was that it was going to help with micronutrient absorption, and I thought that would help people with their immune system. But we didn't even know any of the impact on energy, on ATP, on DNA, like none of that. And then to start hearing from people with autoimmune disease and how it was impacting them. The first ones were in inflammatory bowel disease. And it was a friend that I ran with at U of A. And he contacted me and said, I haven't been able to manage my disease in 12 years. And my flares have completely stopped. And he was on a fairly low dose at the time. But nothing was working. Nothing was working for him. He was a non-responder. And that's happened a number of times. So then there was IBD, there was Hashimoto's, there was lupus, then MS. Like, this was not something we were expecting at all. And we still don't really know. We don't know what the mechanism of action is. We don't know why it's doing it. We have theories about how it's turning off the whole inflammatory process in the body. We don't know why it's impacting type 1 diabetes. We do know that inositol is an insulin mimetic. So that's newly discovered information. But we don't know why it's impacting autoimmune disease so significantly.
So how do I get phytase? Is it an injection?
Sorry, yeah. So it's a capsule. It's a pill that you take. You can take between 1 and 6 per day.
So I've got a bottle right here. Okay, so this is what it looks like.
And you just order online.
Yeah, and it just comes in a pill form. It's just a pill.
Yep.
And there's how much
powder inside.
Okay, and how many of these pills do people take a day?
So anyone with an inflammatory problem or an autoimmune disease, chronic inflammation, chronic disease, typically their dose seems to be 2 to 6 capsules a day. Some people are fine with 2. Personally, I take 8 or 10 just because I like it. It can't hurt you. It's a protein. An enzyme is a protein. So you can't overdose on this.
Yeah, and to be honest, for me, dosing has been the challenge. And I don't know if that's specific to someone having an autoimmune condition like I do, but really figuring out that key dosing. So it comes in a bottle. It comes like this. Comes in a capsule form. Dosing, people can contact you, obviously. How is this being distributed in North America and around the world?
So we're just online right now. In the US, we have it on Amazon.com, and we've just got it on our website. People anywhere can order it. We can ship to almost all countries. Some of them, I believe Germany and Ireland right now, and Mexico won't allow it in.
Okay, and what is your website?
Goodphyte.com. So PHYTE.
So goodphyte.com, but you can't get this in certain countries. Why?
We don't know yet. We haven't had the capacity to kind of investigate the regulatory hurdles there. We know that it was just approved in India. It's approved in the US. We're a week away from getting a high dose NPN number for Canada. We already have a low dose NPN for Canada. And we just got approval in Greece as well with the FDA there.
So you said the word inflammation, and inflammation is a key word with MS. It's a key word with many conditions. How does this affect inflammation?
In a very simple way, it seems to just be turning it off. So it just seems to, when the body is trying to attack a foreign protein or a virus or something foreign in the body, it turns on acute inflammation. The problem is when that inflammation stays on and doesn't ever get turned off. So this seems to be turning that off. And I can get into super heavy science on that, but that's essentially what seems to be happening.
Well, and I can say in the conversations I've had with you, the conversations I've had with my dad, when I started taking the product, that's how it felt. It felt as though something got turned off. It was like a moment, at first I thought that you drugged me because it was so dramatic for me. Now, and it's been almost a year since I've been taking the product. But I'll tell you that same turn on, turn off feeling has continued. And I know if I stop taking it now,
Yeah.
things turn back on.
Yeah. The inflammation turns back on.
Well, I don't know. When you live with MS for so long, that's a baseline, this feeling. I can't really explain it, but that goes away. It's almost like a buzz stops in your body. And what was that? And I don't think I'm alone. I've heard similar stories from people who just feel like they just suddenly feel different.
And I can explain the chemistry of exactly what that is, but it gets into a lot of heavy science. But yeah, so the body, acute inflammation is a good thing to take care of those viruses, right? Or the bacteria or whatever it is that is in your body that shouldn't be. That's normal for your body to send that inflammatory response. You cut your hand, it sends all those white blood cells to attack it. But it's supposed to turn off. And if you don't have this enzyme, this phosphatase enzyme, it's just staying on.
If this is true, we're talking about billions of lives can be influenced in a positive way by implementing phytase into the food system. Is it the one analogy I have that comes to mind for me? It's how folic acid was added to grains.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, to cereal, it should be added. So there are groups that are working on trying to make a heat stable phytase that can be added into food. At Cornell, all over the world, they're trying to add it into food systems. We just had a call the other day with Sight and Life, and they're working on adding it into like staples in the diet. They can flour, corn, porridges. But the thing is that then if you cook it, it destroys the enzyme. So we chose specifically to go with an enzyme, a pill that you could just swallow to make sure you get that whole dose. And even for my kids, I just open the capsule and I sprinkle it on their food, or I put it on like a teaspoon of whipped cream or something that they like.
So if I'm watching this, I'm listening to this podcast right now, this makes sense to me. I can understand that there may be some serious problems by eating certain foods, plants, seeds, nuts, grains, beans. I want this. The only place I can get this safely is you.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah, no one else. That's why Gates Foundation asked me to be part of that panel, because nobody else, there are no commercial products on the market for humans, period.
So Amy, this should explode.
I hope it does for humanity. I really, and anyone that wants to help with this mission will take all the help we can get, because this feels, it is, every day it is what I wake up to do. I'm a mom to 4 kids, but other than that, this is the mission that has been given to me to bring to the world. But it needs a lot more people. It needs universities, it needs think tanks, it needs philanthropy, it needs big minds, it needs help to scale. And the conversations we're having with Sight and Life and Gates Foundation, like they're just still at such a preliminary level of understanding with it. They understand the micronutrient absorption, but I mean the microbiome interaction, the gut, all of that, like what it can do, the inositol, insulin mimetic, like the size of this and what it can do for the world is huge.
Now, you brought up the Bill Gates Foundation a number of times. Why is that important?
I think the Gates Foundation needs to hear this. Bill Gates is looking for these solutions, and this is a big solution. So if I could ask for anything, it would be to speak with him. One day I will sit down with him and we will have a conversation, and I will show him my research, and he'll be like, "Oh, thank you. This makes sense. I've been waiting for you to bring this to me."
I mean, obviously, again, this is a huge story, but to bring it down to the small level story, I know for me that it works. Like, I know it. It's really hard for me to express it because I don't want to come across like I'm endorsing it or promoting it. It's very challenging. I'm very clear with you and everyone else. I have zero financial interest in this whatsoever. None. I share this because for me, I know it works, and I know I'm not alone. I know people all over the world have contacted me. I have a friend of mine who, and this is anecdotal, went on the product. 6 months later, off his lupus medication. First time since his diagnosis. It's truly unbelievable. I've had my son's friends' parents contact me. They put their kids on it and seeing incredible results. I've watched results with my own kids, dosing them, or not dosing them, but giving them the product that have been incredible.
Yeah.
For me, it's hard not to want to get the story out. What can we do to help?
I mean, I think that this year is going to be a lot of speaking engagements and trying to get it out to the media. People need to know about this because I feel like it's a fundamental right, and it's being hidden in plain sight. Like, it doesn't make sense as to why more people don't know about this, and I don't know why. I really, truly don't. And I don't know why it's been given to me to handle, So anybody that can help spread the word, that's what we're trying to do. We're going to start talking to government organizations. I just met the other day with somebody in the Canadian government that wants to help get it to other countries. So there are going to have to be conversations with NGOs, but also with governments, and they have to put it into their policy. They have to start fortifying their foods with it. And this needs to be something that everyone in the world starts taking for health. It will completely revolutionize our health.
Well, I guess you have two options. You either, if you're going to eat the foods with high phytic acid,
which you should be,
you've got to have it. But can you also have a diet where you don't eat a lot of phytic acid and be okay?
Yeah, so you can get phosphorus from meat. So if you were to, I know there are a lot of people with autoimmune disease that are on kind of like a carnivore meat and fruit diet. They seem to do really, really well. And obviously that's because they're not eating all these inflammatory foods. So you absolutely can. I just want to be clear that I'm not saying don't ever eat any of these foods. You just have to be able to break it down. They can all still be good for you. Plant-based is great. But anybody who's vegan, if you're not breaking that down, you see somebody go vegan and they just look terrible. Unless they're really working hard at all the fermentation and everything. They're pale, they have no energy, they get anemic, they get sick all the time. It's because all of those foods are binding all those critical nutrients in your body. You're not getting them, you're starving. Even if you're getting the calories, you are starving.
It just seems so obvious to me from just an evolutionary perspective. Human beings sometimes forget that trees and plants and other animals are trying to survive just as much as we are. And the plants and the grains and the beans, they just got clever.
They can't run away from us.
They
have to do it very slowly and strategically from the inside.
They created a poison.
Yeah.
And so do other animals outside of humans die from too much phytic acid?
Well, so if you think about it, would a fish eat grain?
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Would a pig in the wild eat grain?
Probably not.
Absolutely not. We're the only ones. See, if you look back in the fossil record, 10,000 years ago, with the advent, 10 to 12,000 years ago, with the advent of agriculture, when we stopped hunter-gathering, when we stopped trusting that food would always be available to us, and we started planting crops, monocrops, we look at the fossil record, that's when all the diseases of civilization started.
So once we started upping our intake of phytic acid, we just got sick.
Because to me, and there's a spiritual side to this, we stopped trusting God, the universe, that there would always be enough food. So these monocrops came up, right? If you read Guns, Germs, and Steel, then you needed kings to protect the land. You needed troops. You needed people stayed sedentary. They were no longer traveling around. But there are no other monogastrics that choose to walk up and eat grains.
Right. There's also a really interesting theory. This is totally off topic. How the high consumption of grains gives you such a hit of dopamine. You can easily become enslaved because you just stop fighting hierarchies. So you get your big hit of grains, say 3 times a day. You just become complacent with life, and you'll just do whatever because you're more or less on a low grade heroin for your whole existence.
Wow. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, and that's why civilization grew so substantially because you had all these human beings suddenly stop fighting for a better way. They just were happy to serve as long as they got their feed, so to speak.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I digress.
Well, and grain, a piece of bread does the same thing to your body, blood sugar wise, as a chocolate bar. Today's current bread.
Right. So, to kind of go back on this, I've been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Okay. I'm choosing to really watch my nutrition. What do I have to lose for trying this?
Nothing. What we always tell people is start slowly. Start with one capsule and just slowly build up from that. We tell them often take it away from your other supplements. So take it first thing in the morning, maybe again at lunch, and then that's it for the day. And take your other supplements kind of in the evening before bed.
Now, 2 questions. 1, why has it taken this long to get this to the public? And number 2, are people having negative results with this?
So why has it taken a long time to get to the public? I don't know. I was just on a panel discussion with Sight and Life, which is a big organization, nonprofit, and the Gates Foundation. So they hosted that back in December. And the discussion was, how do we get this into humans? Because it's very, very widely used in the animal feed industry for monogastrics. So pigs, chickens, fish. They know the benefits. It's used to prevent phosphate runoff into the water because that causes algae blooms. So we know that about animals. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry for agriculture. Knowing all of that and knowing the human studies that have already been done on how it can impact anemia and the immune system and zinc absorption, I don't know why it's not more. I ask that question all the time. I recently talked to someone in Switzerland. He thought maybe it was a price issue, but there's no way it's a price issue.
Okay, but if I check my digestive enzyme, it says there's phytase in it.
There are a few out there, but they have like 10 FTU.
So what does that mean?
It's not going to do anything to if you're eating 2,000 units of phytic acid a day, you need like 2,000 units of phytase to break that down.
Okay, so
10 is doing absolutely nothing for you.
Okay, so 10 what?
FTU. It's just the way you measure it's the phytase units.
Okay, so that's not enough.
Not at all. And if anything, what I've learned recently is that it's going to just partially dephosphorylate it, and then it binds even more strongly to zinc. So that small dose is actually more damaging than a super high dose.
So what you're doing is you're offering a really high dose of phytase.
That's why they asked me to be on the Gates Foundation panel, because they were like, how are you doing this? Even DSM isn't doing it. They're in animal feed. They're not in humans yet. They've done some studies, preliminary studies, great results, amazing results on anemia and zinc absorption, on stunting. There are some on calcium and magnesium absorption in humans. And there are FDA documents that show that up to 60,000 FTUs per day is safe. We've had 3 different people do the calculations on those published documents. The World Food Program, WHO, FDA has published a document that states 60,000 per day is safe. And our capsules are 800.
Okay, so I went public with this almost a year ago, and there was a flood of people who had similar experiences that I did. For me, they were very dramatic, more energy, my body temperature, my ability to regulate body temperature changed, sleeping through the night. Eye color had changed, skin has changed as well, so strength has changed. Now, but there were people who had negative effects. What's going on there, and how do we explain that?
I truly don't know. And I did hear from some of them. I would say overwhelmingly, it's probably 90% positive effects. 10% of people maybe no response, like they're already healthy, they don't really have any nutrient deficiencies. And then I think you probably heard more of the negative effects on that. I don't know if there's an interaction with the medication. Again, in that document, it doesn't show any interactions with any of the medications. So, but if there's some kind of, it's causing you to absorb more of the medication, like we know it can cause, if you take zinc, high doses of zinc and phytase together, you would get really nauseous. Like people get nauseous just taking zinc by itself, right? Same with iron. So if you're taking phytase with that and then you're like super absorbing it, maybe there's a negative effect there. Or maybe if they're not taking high enough doses, then they're only partially breaking down the phytic acid, and maybe it's binding to something else. I wish I could answer it, but I don't know the answer to it.
Still a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
But we know it's having an impact with people with multiple sclerosis. There's no question.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Yeah, some of those, I mean, we have all the testimonials saved that people would write us, and energy, fatigue, foot drop, improving. I mean, yeah, it was amazing. It was life-changing for a lot of people.
Now, for our podcast and most of my audience, this is MS based primarily. But what you're saying is hidden hunger and the need for phytase is far bigger than the MS community. How big is this?
So on the human health side of things, again, 3 billion people. So a quarter of the world is micronutrient deficient. And that's just an estimate from the World Health Organization. So if you could get phytase into 3 billion people and they could absorb all of those micronutrients, think of all the diseases that could be impacted by that.
So we see these videos of planes dropping off huge bags of corn and all these types of foods that are incredibly high in phytic acid.
Yeah, exactly.
This actually could be hurting people?
That's the thing. So USA drops off this big corn soy blend, and the calculation I did on that with Dr. Harlan and Dr. Oberleis years ago is that they're probably eating around 2,200 units of phytate per day, phytic acid, the bad one. So you think about a refugee camp and the cholera outbreak there, and they're just wiping out their immune system with this corn soy blend, right? Because they're not fermenting it. They're not spraying it with phytase. They're not depleting the phytic acid. It doesn't matter if you've added micronutrients to that. You can't absorb them. So yeah, I think it's huge. And then there's 400 million people with autoimmune disease, and it's on the rise. Every one of us knows somebody with autoimmune disease.
But it just seems like such a simple story here.
Yeah.
You've got all these plants and grains and all this life protecting itself from animals trying to survive by creating phytic acid or phytic acid. And humans, it just seems that this is causing us damage on let's just say a small incremental level that slowly starts to add up.
Yeah. And it's not, so I want to be clear that it's not that you can't eat phytic acid. So all of those plant foods have phosphorus in them. We need that. We need that for ATP and DNA and bone health. So don't cut out plant foods. Just make sure you're breaking down the phytic acid. That's it. See, if you want to ferment it, you want to sprout, our gut bacteria can make very tiny amounts of phytase. But if you've taken antibiotics, you've got stress, you've wiped out that good gut bacteria, you're not making any. And even if you're optimally healthy, you're not making enough to break down all the phytic acid in the diet. So unless you're eating porridge, oatmeal, as a fermented porridge, all that phytic acid is still present.
Mm-hmm. Amy, you're going to be reaching a lot of people with this podcast. Is there something you want people to know?
I think just know that truly I feel like the world needs to hear this. This isn't about building a company, because initially this was research that I tried to give away. I talked to so many people. I still have binders of people that I talked to, that I thought could take this. And I guess I would hope that if you're affiliated with a university, if you're affiliated with a research organization or a think tank of some kind, and you want to study this, and no matter what disease you're working in, please contact us, because we do want research collaborations. If you're an NGO, a nonprofit working in micronutrient, hidden hunger alleviation of any kind, whether that's in North America or the global south, anywhere, we want to work with you. We need help to get this out to more people. We need help with this mission, because we're a very tiny team and we're doing our best, but it's hard.
One thing I love with working with your team over the past year is how responsive you are to people. So when people contact me, or when they reach out, we send them to you and you answer questions. So if someone's watching or listening to this podcast and they want to try, you can go to goodphyte.com. Through that, you will answer the questions.
Yep. We're doing our best.
And you'll help people with dosing
Yep.
and advise them on these types of things.
Absolutely.
How much stress is this for you?
I feel like a salmon swimming up the stream sometimes. And I feel like I just need to get this across the finish line. And I don't know who I pass it to next, but I feel like, yeah, it's exhausting, to be honest. Like, I don't know what I do without phytase because I need that for energy to do this. But yeah, it feels like a very heavy burden, to be honest, but I don't feel like I have a choice in the matter. I do feel like this was, for whatever reason, given to me. And I tried to walk away from it. I tried to run away from it because it just felt too heavy and like too much work. But I can't know this I can't know this now and not give it to the world. That just feels wrong to me. It feels immoral to not do everything I possibly can to get this out there.
Well, we met just over a year ago. Has there been growth since then?
Huge growth. Yeah.
So already in 1 year, things are going.
Oh, yeah. We grew 550% last year. And I think a big part of that, honestly, was in the autoimmune community.
Well, the word gets out there. And if people are doing better, they tell the story.
Yeah. And a big part of it is word of mouth. And you just, a lot of people, it sounds like I'm selling snake oil because it does so much. But if you think about it, if you zoom out, get away from all the science, if you zoom out, it's just, you go back 300 years, they didn't know why they were fermenting their food. There's just inherent wisdom in the way foods are prepared. And this nutritional anthropology course I did, somebody walked into a village and said, why are you taking these potatoes and grating them all the time? They said to the women, like, what a waste of time. Just put them in the pot and cook them. Why are you doing it that way? And they said, well, I don't know. We don't know. So they started putting it in the pot and cooking it that way. And everybody died of cyanide poisoning.
Right.
So there was inherent wisdom. I don't know how they knew it. I don't know how they knew to ferment their food, why sour porridge existed. I mean, you look at African sour porridge, it's like beer. That's how they prepare it for 3 days at a time. So zoom away from all the molecular chemistry, all of it. It's just the way we would never be walking in a field and think, I'm going to go pick up that wheat and chew on it.
Agreed. But I think people in today's world and how we access food and current food systems, it's very hard, I think, for people to get their heads around the fact that a grain, a bean, a plant, what we're told is good for us, might have something in it that's very bad for us.
But you have to look at the FDA, you have to look at those food systems and who is funding the research and who, the dairy industry, the agricultural industry, like the government wants to stimulate the economy, right? And we have a wheat basket in Canada. The monocrops in the world right now, corn, soy, wheat, rice, like that's the way to feed the masses. And you can eat those. So Gates needs to hear this because they're promoting plant protein, but all of those foods are so high in phytic acid. That's okay, but you need to be adding phytase to these people's diets or it's just going to wreck their immune system. So it's okay to go plant, but we need to be treating this properly. You need to be able to break down that anti-nutrient and we can't ignore it.
Amy, what does hope mean to you?
I think hope and faith are intertwined. I've had a number of people tell me hope is not a strategy, but I couldn't disagree with that more. I think it's the only thing that keeps me going. And my faith, knowing without a doubt that this is, I don't question this at all. I don't know where it's all going to go. It's like watching a movie sometimes, but I know this is my mission before I die. So I have to have hope. I can't give up on it now.
Amy, you're doing fantastic work. You've changed my life. I know you've changed the lives of people all over the world. The work you're doing is incredibly important. We're going to follow up with you. We're going to see how this journey continues to go. Again, for anyone who's watching or listening to this, please go to goodphyte.com for more information. you can contact Amy or someone from her team through that website. They will get back to you. Keep doing what you're doing, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thanks for listening. Remember, there is hope. For free information on managing MS, including the Best Bet Diet Cookbook, more videos, and all other science-based resources, visit mshope.com. And follow me, Matthew Embry, on Instagram and Facebook. The MS Hope podcast is produced by MS Hope as an initiative to widely share our message. Please contact us directly if you want to support or join the team.
The MS Hope podcast is intended for general information purposes and is not a substitute for professional health or medical advice. The views, opinions, and statements expressed in this program are those of the individual guests and do not necessarily reflect the views, policies, or positions of the MS Hope podcast, its host, or any affiliated organizations. Remember, your health journey is unique. Stay informed, stay in control, and stay hopeful. For more information, visit mshope.com.